Arizona Cardinals do come into town, they might already be here for all I know. Sometimes teams will travel straight from the previous preseason game, especially if it's a road game, just straight to the next site if it's a joint
Right.
practice. So there's a good chance the Cardinals are already in town, but they're going to be here for joint practices Wednesday and Thursday again, and then Saturday noon game to close out the preseason at US Bank Stadium. It's a weird Cardinals team compared to years past. Cliff Kingsbury is no longer their head coach. Kyler Murray is still their quarterback, but he's injured. And DeAndre Hopkins is no longer on the team as their wide receiver. Byron Murphy now plays for the Vikings. It's a very different looking roster. They still have Budda Baker. They still have Hollywood Brown as a wide receiver. So they still have some decent players. James Conner in the running back position, but what they'll have trotting out there at quarterback is going to be sort of strange. Colt McCoy is probably going to get a bunch of the first team reps. I think they have David Blau, former Vikings practice squad legend. So very strange and most likely terrible team coming into camp. Now, it doesn't mean the reps will be worthless. It doesn't mean the Vikings will just clean their clocks. Practice is for practice, is not for winning a rep. As Kirk Cousins said the other day, it's not about necessarily winning a rep. It's to learn. It's to get better. So they do have a new head coach, defensive-minded Jonathan Gannon. He was I think he was the Eagles defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
Last year. So accomplished defensive coach, got to the Super Bowl last year. Used to be on the Vikings staff, defensive backs coach, I think 5 years ago or so. So it's going to be an interesting week, different than the Titans coming in, because the Titans were brought in very much so from the perspective of we want to see their bully, we want to see their sort of toughness and how aggressive they're going to be. This team, I honestly can't really put a finger on why the Vikings would want to practice with them, simply other than they just want to practice against somebody other than themselves. I don't know if you have any better insight into that, but that's kind of where I'm at looking at this. So to me, it's sort of just, business as usual. It's training camp. We're just going against red jerseys instead of purple this week.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I don't know why they want to practice. Like you said, the Titans, it was kind of like, hey, they've got a good defensive line. The defense is kind of nasty. The Vikings kind of struggled with teams like that last season. Let's see how they do. And they struggled against the Titans, which maybe we should raise an eyebrow about that. But Arizona, I mean, it might, like you said, I think it's just kind of, let's see what we look like against a different team. Let's see what we look like, a team that doesn't have J.J. Watt anymore and that lost a bunch of people, and that is kind of, I would argue, a lot of people, it's like them. I'm not talking crap about Tampa Bay because we play them week 1, but, Tampa Bay, I'm trying to think of other bad teams, but those are
Carolina's not supposed to be very good.
Yeah, but even Carolina is more exciting. I'm talking about teams that are in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And I think Arizona is. I have a whole conspiracy theory about Kyler Murray potentially being a Viking next season, and I wouldn't be excited about that. Yeah, I would not be excited about that, but I do think that there's a thread there that you could pull on for long enough, and you could talk yourself into if they get Caleb Williams, would they trade him for a third-round pick? No, probably not. It'd probably be a second, maybe a first. Would you do it? You don't have Cousins. Let's say Cousins goes to wherever, San Francisco for huge money or something. There's a thread there to pull on. We're not going to pull on it tonight, but I don't want that to happen. I'm on the record. I don't want Kyler Murray to be the Vikings quarterback at any point in his career. But moving past that, I do want to talk about some guys that I'm excited to watch, and my first guy that I'm excited to watch is actually kind of flipping this whole thing on its head. I'm excited to watch Cardinals rookie quarterback Clayton Tune.
Oh,
out
your
of
guy.
Houston. I loved me some Clayton Tune, and with Jaren Hall not exactly looking like Patrick Mahomes in his preseason action, and Clayton Tune looking decent in some of his preseason action. I want to see what, hey, maybe we'll see in the one that got away. in Clayton Tune, who, I kind of fell in love with in the draft process. So he is an Arizona Cardinal. He does, he is playing preseason snaps, so I don't think he's the starter. But he might get some playing time this season because I don't think they're going to be very good. And I don't know that Kyler Murray is going to be rushed back if they're sitting pretty for Caleb Williams. So I'm excited to watch Clayton Tune. I think that he is super talented. You can go back and watch like pre-draft videos, about quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. I think that I'm not excited to watch him because I think he's going to test our secondary. Our secondary should be able to handle Clayton Tune. I'm excited to watch him, like I said earlier, because I want to see, is he handling camp better than Jaron Hall is? Did Kwesi maybe make a misstep in taking Jaron Hall over Clayton Tune? Kind of the, whenever like a quarterback goes 1 and 2, like they'll compare, what was his name? Like Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. They're compared for all of time because, they were drafted 1-2. And so kind of that, but at a much different scale, like 5th and 6th round guys. So I'm excited to see Clayton Tune, see what he does, and see, maybe every mid-round, maybe every late round rookie quarterback isn't exactly looking like he's lighting it up at this point in their NFL careers. And so maybe that will put some perspective into what Jaron Hall's looking like and make me feel a little bit better about Jaron Hall. Who are you excited about in the joint practices? Or not even, I think we should save the who are you excited about for like, if you're going to say a Viking, for like the preseason thing. What do you want to see out of this? What reports do you want to hear come out of these joint practices?
Yeah, that's the exact angle I think we should take on this. And to me, it's offensive and defensive line. I think, I guess I should maybe back up. Not necessarily defensive line. The defensive line looked bad yesterday, apart from maybe a couple series at the beginning of the game. Second half was terrible. Just getting pushed around, basically, gashing holes in the run game. But that's third and fourth stringers. So I guess my more worrisome point would be the offensive line. Kirk Cousins, thank goodness he had a red jersey on Wednesday and Thursday because, the offensive line was not holding their own for the most part against, albeit a good defensive line, but they were not the best pass rushing defensive line last year by any stretch. They were about middle of the road. They were a better maybe defensive run stopping defensive line, and especially the right side of the line without Brian O'Neill did not look good. Basically Bradbury over, just could not contain. So no, Arizona does not have that caliber of a pass rush. No, Arizona does not have those names like Tennessee does. But with that said, I think it's very important that those three guys, Bradbury, Ingram, and Udo, especially if O'Neill does not get, snaps this upcoming week, they need to do better. And they need to sort of, basically keep Kirk Cousins clean and get some holes in the run game because it was ugly. When I was there Thursday, it didn't look great, apart from really a couple, maybe 2-minute drives at the end of practice. And Garrett Bradbury talked to Ben Gessling at the Star Tribune after and made a comment of how he was, grateful that Thursday went better than Wednesday. And I was sitting there thinking, so how bad was Wednesday? Because Thursday was not good. So that's, first, foremost, and above everything else. The offensive line needs to show me something.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's this, and I think I've seen this floated around on the app formerly known as Twitter a couple times, this entire offseason really, and it's this idea of like, why did Spielman and every Vikings offensive coordinator, and now O'Connell and Kwesi, why do we have this idea of like, yeah, we can have these undersized offensive guards and an undersized center because they're good at getting to the second level in the running game. And it's like, what? Like, what? Do you realize we have a 35-year-old man who, thank God has stayed healthy for most of his career, but like, his bones will get brittle or whatever you want to call it. Like, he is not going to, in football terms, live forever. And like, we have to just draft some big dudes, because we are going up against some big dudes. I mean, you look at the guys that are on the Vikings schedule in terms of defensive tackle talent. The Eagles' entire defensive line, I'm not even going to just name one of them, but it's basically the Georgia Bulldogs defensive line from like 2 or 3 years ago, which is outstanding. I mean, like, we're talking, like, Cousins is going to be in trouble that week. They're going up against Vita Vea week 1. They're going up against, Cincinnati's D-line, where the strength of their D-line is on the inside. The NFL is slowly, and it's kind of like, it's not really a secret, because there's still the TJ Watts, and there's still Daniil Hunters, and there's these guys that, they come around the edge, and they get the blindside sacks, and everybody loves them, and they're the edge rusher. Aaron Donald and Chris Jones are probably the 2 best pass rushers in the league, and they rush from the inside. If you get inside pressure in this league, I don't care if you have Pat Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, whoever it is, you're going to struggle as an offense if you can't. If you can run away from guys from the outside pretty easily. I've seen Kirk do it a couple of times. I think last year he kind of tried to do it against like Micah Parsons, who is considered to be one of the best edge rushers in the league, and Kirk was able to run away from him on a couple of plays. It's hard to like right in your face, oh shoot, let me turn around and then run. It just takes longer, and it's just more difficult. So that's a real area of concern, in my opinion, is the Vikings offensive line, and like, Dalton Reisner comes in for a visit, and I don't know if if him and his agent said, like, okay, so like, we're going to be the starting guard, right, at left or right. We don't care. We'll play wherever. Where do you want us? And I don't know if like the Vikings' response was, well, you're not going to be handed anything. You're going to have to come in and own it, and that kind of turned Reisner away. Or if the Vikings really just thought, well, maybe he can't get to the second level the same way that Ezra Cleveland can. Ezra Cleveland, I think, had that play last season where he was like down at the 5 running just as fast as Dalvin Cook. And that's cool. That's cool that he's a good athlete, but like, we can't be letting Cousins just get blown up week after week after week. It's gonna be, I mean, like, it could look, I'm not trying to be, pessimist tonight. I feel like I'm being very negative tonight, and I'm not trying to be. I'm very optimistic about this season. But the season could really just come down to, oh yeah, the Vikings didn't really do anything about the line, and Cousins kept getting hit, and they played better defensive lines this season because they had a first place schedule. So what I want to see, I talked about Clayton Tune. I'll throw this in for like my last thing that I want to see out of the joint practices, just super quickly. I mean, and it kind of goes without saying, I do want to hear that like Arizona's quarterbacks are struggling to throw the ball against this Vikings secondary. There's no reason we should be letting Colt McCoy pick us apart. Hollywood Brown is a fine deep threat. I don't regard him as this elite route runner. The Viking secondary needs to show me that they can be fine against teams with bad quarterback play. And, I don't want another Mike White Jets situation where Mike White comes in and we make him look like, prime, trying to think of a good quarterback, not going to come to Ben Roethlisberger. Let's go with him. I don't know. Like, just pick a Hall of Fame guy. And that's what Mike White looks like against us. So Daniel Jones looking like Fran Tarkington running around, throwing all over the field. Like, nah, we need the defense needs to be much better in the pass game. Middle of the field needs to be shut down a little bit by the safeties. And I just want to hear that the Arizona's passing game, not looking too hot. Not looking too hot at all. So that's what I'm looking for. I will give you a chance to jump in here for another what you want to say. Also, maybe stealing this from you. Let's stay healthy. I said that last week. Let's stay healthy throughout these practices. Let's not get banged up, please.
That's the most important thing. And the Vikings did have a couple minor injuries this last week. Caleb Evans got dinged up. There was worries about, concussion stuff. I think he passed all that, so I think he's fine. Thank goodness for his new massive helmet. Mekhi Blackman had a little bit of a shoulder thing happen on Thursday in one-on-ones. He sat out the rest of practice, didn't play on Saturday. So he's the guy to watch, just for health. I would love to see him out there again on Saturday. Hopefully he's good enough to run. He's another guy. He's not necessarily fighting for a roster spot. I think it's pretty clear that he'll make the team. For him, it's more, where's he going to slot in? Is he going to be, if they're going to start 3 corners, will he be the 3rd corner out there, or is he going to be, a rotational guy? It's pretty clear that, Flores is not going to play basically just a base defense. He's going to be shifting guys in and out all the time. One play he might have 6 defensive backs. The next play he might have 4. It just depends on what he's wanting to do. So, Mekhi Blackman is still a guy who's looking to kind of nail down his spot. So hopefully he's healthy and ready to roll.
Yeah.
The last thing that go ahead.
I just wanted to say about Mekhi Blackman because the reports day of his injury were super scary. They were like, yeah, his shoulder was drooping and he wasn't really moving his arm, and that's kind of a telltale sign of a broken collarbone. I'm pretty sure all reports came back he's good. Like he will be fine. It's not a broken collarbone or anything. So I do think even if they play it safe with him in these practices and in the preseason game, I do think he will be okay come the start of the season, but everything else you said rings true, and he could really use these reps in this week to kind of solidify himself as a rotational piece in the defense, more than just cornerback depth. That's